We are going to be talking about a group that often gets overlooked in a lot of mental health conversations, women in their 30s. They look capable, successful, high achieving, but behind the productivity and responsibility, we know from our clinical work, Debbie, that many are quietly overwhelmed, they're stretched thin, and often they're emotionally exhausted.
Yes, and not only our clinical work, I'm speaking from personal experience. Whether you're navigating careers, marriage, infertility, divorce, motherhood, or caring for aging parents, this decade of 30s can be one of the most psychologically demanding seasons of a woman's life. The research is clear. Women in early and mid adulthood experience significantly higher rates of anxiety and depression than men. If you are in your 30s or love someone who is, this conversation matters. We hope you'll join us.
Do you sometimes feel lost in your relationships, your identity, or even your spirituality? Welcome to Gilmore Green, where healing and hope meet.
We are marriage and family therapists and relationship experts who care deeply about helping you grow, strengthen your relationships, and deepen your sense of meaning and spirituality.
We long to share from our clinical experience, years of training and solid research, including ideas about how to strengthen the things that matter the most to all of us in life.
We're so glad you're here. Our hope is to share simple, meaningful ideas that support you in your healing and in your growth. Welcome to Gilmore and Green, where healing and hope meet. I'm Dr. Debi Gilmore.
And I'm Sharilyn Green. Today we are talking about a group that often gets overlooked in mental health conversations. Women in their 30s, they're competent, they're capable, they're often high achieving. The women we're talking about today may be raising children or actually grieving not being able to have them. They may be building careers, navigating marriages, or some are dealing with divorces. Some may be caring for aging parents, trying to just stay healthy, or maybe they're trying to stay connected while racing. Oh, I love that word, racing, day after day, just to get things done, or even trying to stay afloat. And quietly, many are exhausted and overwhelmed. And Debbie, honestly, sometimes when I see women in their 30s, I literally want to go and just bow down in front of them and just say, oh my goodness, I have some idea of what you're doing, how you are just racing through life. And I want you to know I see you, and we just don't give you enough honor for what you're doing. So I really do have that feeling when I see a woman in this stage of life.
I see that too. And we as therapists are tuned into people's body language. And often, like you said, they quietly are exhausted. They don't say anything. They are overwhelmed. And sometimes I'm caught off guard by those that actually say, I am so exhausted and I didn't know. So this decade can look successful on the outside, but internally, these women in their 30s and early 40s are often facing one of the most psychologically demanding seasons of a woman's life. Now, there is research that we don't talk about, but it's becoming more and more prevalent. According to recent studies, women consistently report higher rates of anxiety and depression than men, particularly during their reproductive and early midlife years. But that's because women are more likely to report it. In 2023, the National Institute of Mental Health found that women are nearly twice as likely as men to experience major depressive disorder, with peak occurring in early and mid adulthood. That's stunning.
It is stunning. I'm thinking about what you're saying and maybe why that may be so. We know that women in their 30s, they're often sitting at kind of an intersection of so many stresses coming from so many different directions. They're facing career pressures. They're facing financial strain. They're facing parenting demands. They can be dealing with relationship instability, infertility, caregiving responsibilities. Like we've talked about, there's just so many, they just really are at an intersection.
We don't want to gloss over that infertility issue because that is at the peak of their time when they want to produce children and have a family for their future. And that struggle, that agony that can take years is so hard.
Right. Just one of the types of stress that are hitting this age group. Add to that, we also see the impact of social media and the comparisons and the painful impact of perfectionism that causes. And so you start adding that all up together and it becomes a really big mountain. The research on role strain suggests that juggling multiple high demand roles without adequate support significantly increases the risk for psychological distress. And so we don't see that as any kind of weakness in women, especially, right? They're magnificent, but there is a load and an overload that we want to really talk about today and unpack in better ways.
Yeah, it's okay to ask for support. And in fact, in my book, my own personal Debiism, I believe it takes courage to reach out and ask for help and to say, I'm hurting or I'm struggling. I need you. There's this having it all myth that I think contributes to the perfectionism and the high standards that many women hold themselves to. Women in their 30s were raised with a powerful message, and here it is: you can have it all: a career, the perfect marriage, children, fitness, loyal friendships, all the while focusing on self care, meaning, and purpose, all the fantasies, and that's what it is, of a perfect, ideal world. We are imperfect, perfect isn't possible, and that's so hard for the best of us to even accept. But no one explained during that growing up time and being cultivated with these thoughts of higher standards, no one explained the invisible cost of trying to do all of that simultaneously, like Superwoman. Research on what's called intensive mothering. Culture shows that modern parenting expectations have become increasingly demanding, and here's that word again, perfectionistic, particularly for us women. So at the same time, workplace expectations have not meaningfully decreased. In fact, the ceiling has been lifted, women can climb the ladder of success, and more demands are placed on them.
I hope we're building for people listening today a better idea of what's facing this young, I'll call them young women. They feel like young women to me, but women in this stage of life. And so, Debbie, as you're talking and we're talking about this, I'm thinking, what's the result then of all these high expectations? What happens then to this group of women when this all is hitting them? And we know that there's chronic stress, right? And as therapists, we understand that chronic stress over a prolonged period of time, that's a predictor that increases anxiety, sleep disruption, irritability, and then the depressive symptoms that we've already talked about. Again, we want to address social media. That's such a factor in our world today. They're equally immersed in it. They're comparing their bodies after childbirth to really unreasonable and unrealistic expectations. There's career milestones on social media that they're comparing themselves to. Marriage quality. We see couples on social media that are on vacations, having a great time with each other. And that's hard. There's all kinds of home aesthetics that we compare our homes to, children's behavior, as I said, exotic world travel, and then even just organized friend groups online. That can be so painful for someone really suffering and struggling with this chronic stress that some of this pressure creates. I mean, it's like adding insult to injury, right? When you add that to the whole thing.
That's so right. And, as you talk about social media, I'm thinking of this term social comparison. It seems kind of like a clinical word, but think about it. When we're in social media, we're looking and comparing ourselves just naturally to what's out there. So, social comparison in social media is linked directly to lower self esteem or self worth and increased depressive symptoms in adults, not just teens. It happens in adults as well. We're consumed by what's out there online in social media. And then there's this thing, comparison fatigue, which is real, and it quietly erodes our feeling of contentment. I love that word, content. How many of us truly can pause and say, I'm content? Perfectionism, that robs us of that. We cannot get too content. Comparison and perfectionism are two of the quiet drivers of distress for women in their 30s. Perfectionism covers up our competence. It sounds responsible, disciplined, high achieving, so cool, But underneath, it is frequently fueled by fear. Think about it: fear of failure, disapproval, falling behind, heaven forbid, or not being enough. That's the one that we hear probably the most. I will never be enough. I'm not a good enough mother. I'm not a good enough wife. I'm not a good enough friend. Women just, we're so hard on ourselves. Research shows that, and it shows that maladaptive perfectionism is strongly linked to anxiety, depression, burnout, and even dissatisfaction with our relationships. So when worth becomes tied to performance, achievements is the goal, not who we are. When it rests on our performance and achievements, that it makes us feel unsafe, and mistakes feel catastrophic in nature.
I just want to add something I just thought about as you talked about, perfectionism masquerading as competence. One thing that been thinking about a lot lately is how competence also makes it hard for connection. When we're still competent, right, when we're not vulnerable, that also interferes with our ability to connect with ourselves and with others. So as you mentioned that word, I thought about that too. That's another aspect of being so highly competent that we're untouchable. We can't connect with people.
And we're all about connection. This is our foundational point that we're trying to make in any of our episodes. It's all about connection because that's where the joy lives. And it's the birth of, what does Brene Brown say? The birth of creativity and innovation. But we cannot get there without connection and imperfectionism.
As you've talked, Debbie, comparison intensifies this cycle, right? With social media, we have these professional milestones, we have a parenting culture that all create actually constant kind of benchmarks. Things like she bought a house, she had another baby, she made partner, she looks incredible. Those are the things that we quietly say to ourselves as we look around. The brain is wired for social ranking. And I want to point out too that what we not only do it with one individual, we kind of build a superhuman woman. We take parts from each woman's life and we build something that's just absolutely ridiculous, and we put our little selves against that. So that's something else we also do in this comparison. But the brain is wired for social ranking, unfortunately. So in a digitally saturated world, the reference group for that kind of comparison is actually endless. And studies that we know about on social comparison consistently show that upward comparison, meaning ourselves against those who appear to be doing better, or a conglomeration of those who are doing better, again, like you said, it predicts lower self-esteem and increase again in these depressive symptoms. So together, Debbie, those two things, perfectionism and comparison, they create this moving target so that no matter how much a woman accomplishes, this is the sad part, there's always something or someone further ahead. And the internal narrative becomes, I should be more by now. That's even hard for me to say because I know it's something that we all have said to ourselves in the past. I should be more by now.
And you said internal narrative. That's so true. It's inside of our minds. We tell ourselves all these things. Where what I like to point out is perfection isn't approachable. We're most comfortable being with those who are more humble, who show their flaws and are willing and are fine with it, still trying to refine and smooth those rough edges. But perfection just isn't approachable. It's a lonely place, and that internal narrative is painful. The antidote, what is it? Well, as I said, perfection isn't approachable. Well, the antidote isn't lowering our standards, it's actually shifting how we see ourselves, what we assign to ourselves as who we are. When we uncover our worth, when it's rooted in inherent value rather than achievements and outcome performance, it becomes an expression of self, not proof of self. And when comparison is replaced with secure attachment with self, secure attachment with others, and with the spirit, with God, with self-compassion is another term that we talk about frequently, the nervous system, our brain, finally gets permission to rest, to find content. So now let's just shift gears a little bit and focus specifically on fertility, our identity, and grief. For many women, their 30s, it includes infertility, the struggles, and trying endlessly to figure out the secret to getting pregnant because all around, all their friends are having babies, but they just can't get pregnant. Some are dealing with the painful reality of miscarriage. That's another secret experience that most women don't want to broadcast that. So they suffer silently with their partner, maybe the two of them, or a very small circle of people know about it. Others may still be seeking out their companion, haven't found that person that they'll spend the rest of their life with, and unable to achieve marriage. Those who have married but have experienced tumultuous, unstable relationships may be facing painful divorce and major shifts in their life plans.
I think what you're saying is we really do see the pain associated with this season of life. There is a lot of places where that is so painful. I'm just thinking as you're talking about what that's like for someone who looks around and sees someone married with a partner and kids and maybe not doesn't have that yet, or vice versa. I don't know. There's just a lot of pain that I think you and I, we want to see so clearly. We want to acknowledge it. We have such compassion for those, in these situations and places. And again, as you talked about, one of those really painful places is infertility and pregnancy loss. The research shows that with that comes this elevated rates of depression and anxiety. These griefs they're silent. They're places in people's hearts that we don't often see. There's no public script for how to mourn the life you thought you would have. And so there is this quiet, private grief that people carry while maintaining, a public competence again. Just that in of itself is so hard. So infertility in women's in their 30s does carry a particular emotional weight we want to acknowledge because this decade feels like a window, right? It's almost a panic. There's a window for this, a biological clock that's ticking. And even more powerful than that, like you talked about, it's an identity clock. Am I going to be a mother? And so many women who grew up assuming motherhood would unfold, especially during a certain timeline, when that doesn't happen, it can feel very, I love this word, disorientating and destabilizing.
Right. And Sherilyn, we're quoting a lot of research, and there's a reason for that because these things that we're sharing with you are grounded in empirically evidence supported information that's been tried and tested. And so, first, awareness is the first step toward change. Awareness of, is this happening inside of me? And ask yourself, as you listen to the results of these studies, does this apply to you? And then we will get to the therefore what. But research does consistently show that infertility is associated with elevated levels of anxiety. Is that familiar? Depression, marital strain, because both of you are struggling in your marriage. It's comparable to distress levels to other major life crises like major moves, major job loss, divorce growing up, the crises that we experience as children. This in the ages of 30s and 40s is every bit as traumatizing. But what makes infertility especially painful is, again, its invisibility. Women are often functioning at work, trying to hold their head high, showing up socially, attending baby showers. That's so painful when you go there and you see the joy on others' faces. It's exhausting to maintain that outward appearance of happiness, smiling in family photos, all while carrying cycles of hope and disappointment privately. Now, we mentioned grief. There's layers of grief. Grief over a body that feels like it's not cooperating. Grief over timing that feels totally out of sync. Grief over imagined children, the dream of children. Grief over financial strain from treatment. It is expensive to seek infertility treatments. Grief over the loss of spontaneity in intimacy. It becomes mechanical. Let's hit the bedroom so we can create this baby. Maybe it'll be this time, instead of, I want to be close to you. I want to be physically connected to you. So for many women, infertility quietly challenges identity, who we really are. If motherhood has been central to how we've envisioned our future, delays or losses can provoke shame, how we really see our worth. I am bad because I cannot become pregnant. Self blame, it's all my fault. Or a sense of inadequacy, I'll never be enough. Even though infertility is a medical condition, something we cannot control in our bodies, not a personal failure.
Yeah, this is again really hard to talk about, painful to talk about. Again, we see those that may be resonating with this part of our podcast. And I'll just add again that on top of this, women in their 30s, they're watching their peers build families. That intensifies the social comparison. Even things like social media announcements, pregnancy photos, milestone celebrations, they can become unexpected emotional triggers. We found that the things that help maybe most in this season are two things: validation and, again, a secure connection.
And can I add, Sherilyn, that that's what we're doing here is we're talking about it. And that really is so helpful to say, this is real, this is normal. And we want to validate your pain. And you said, Sherilyn, of course, secure connection, which is something we all are working to achieve. But I just wanted to emphasize that. Why are we talking about this pain at such a level? Because we want to validate that it's real and validate that it's normal.
Because it is often invisible, right?
Yeah.
We really talk about this. So when we talk about the secure connection that helps with this, studies show that partner support significantly buffers that psychological distress and infertility. They need permission to hold both hope and grief simultaneously. And that's hard to do because infertility isn't just a reproductive issue, it's actually an attachment issue, an identity issue, and often even a spiritual issue. And it deserves tenderness, not silence.
Yeah. You talk about minimizing the pain. Just acknowledging that is there is the best fix than if we come in and say, well, let's try this and why don't you do that? That minimizes pain. But when we can say, I see you, I know that this is hard for you, I'm here for you. So if we talk about the idea of this being invisible, and what's most helpful is the support from a partner or a dear friend, a loved one, the attachment layer. Let's talk about that. Clinically, as experts in attachment science, we love attachment science because it is so relevant and relevant as we seek to help people heal. What we see is women in their 30s who are often attachment fatigued. What does this mean? Well, let's dive into this. They're giving emotionally to their children and supporting partners, managing work dynamics, and doing their best to hold family systems together. This is all the plates that we're spinning at this stage of life. The problem is they're not always receiving secure emotional support themselves. So if you're one of those who are so exhausted and invisibly in pain, spinning all these plates, and think about all those things that I just listed, you're not receiving the fuel that you need in order to sustain all those plates spinning. The research on attachment consistently shows that perceived emotional support, that's a sense of, I do have a circle of wagons around me. That's one of the strongest protective factors against depression and anxiety in adulthood. To say it another way, when we do identify those around us who we feel safe, who are loved ones that are consistently there and that we can be there for them, that is a protective factor against mental health issues. So without that attunement, connection, the emotional support, our brains remain in low grade stress. And that means cortisol is constantly pumping through our major organs, causing damage. Over time, that turns into burnout, both emotionally and physically.
Yeah, you're right, Debbie. Attachment fatigue is something we really don't talk about enough, especially in this season for women. And we know that attachment fatigue happens when a woman is chronically giving emotional energy but not receiving anything back. In this decade, many women are regulating their children's emotions. They're supporting a partner. Often that partner's building their career, and there's an intensity to this for their partner. They're also managing their own maybe workplace dynamics and building their career. They're trying to maintain friendships because that's important, but where's the time to do that, right? They're often holding extended family relationships together. That's a part of the role that they carry, and often being the responsible one. They are often the emotional barometers, right? That's what we do as women. We are emotional barometers in the systems around us. But again, over time, that constant outward attunement without any kind of inward attunement completes what we know as this depletion that we're talking about.
So, what we're really talking about is give yourself permission to say, I need help. I need support. From the perspective of attachment and connection, human to human, it's a universal need. We are wired not just to give support, but also to receive it. And that's what we forget. So, if there's one most important thing that we convey today, it is the importance of allowing others to offer support to us. And, if you think about it, it's a reciprocal process. When they serve us, they achieve joy. When we serve others, we get that helper's high. It is a chemical that's released in our body. Secure attachment involves mutual regulation, co regulation. When one person is consistently the regulator and rarely receiving regulation, our brains never fully rest. So, what does attachment fatigue look like? Well, you could tell us if you were open about it and if we could have a two-way communication here. Irritability over small things. Does that sound familiar? It does to me. I remember as a young mother in my 30s and 40s, I sometimes didn't recognize myself. I'm like, wait, where did I go? Emotional numbness, because when we get to that point where we get to overload and we just say the only thing I can do is numb out and shut down, feeling unseen or unappreciated, invisible, that maybe is the most painful thing in a crowded room, to feel so invisible. We start to feel quiet resentment, something we can't speak about because women are supposed to be gentle and respectful. But so we start to resent our world, and exhaustion that doesn't sleep doesn't get fixed. So, in other words, it's fitful sleep because we're up and down with children that need us, or our physical ailments, or whatever else is happening, the stress, the worries, the spinning plates that don't stop spinning in the night. Exhaustion that sleep doesn't get fixed. So, wanting to withdraw, even from people you love, that is a phenomenon we see a lot of, where you used to be such a social creature, but now you can't even imagine even play dates because it's just too much. It's not a character flaw. We want to make sure that we stress that it's a nervous system that's been on duty for way too long. Now, many capable women are praised for being strong. Think about this. These are the ones that are highlighted. They are praised for being dependable, emotionally intelligent, but those strengths actually mask unmet attachment needs. The belief becomes, I shouldn't need anything, or I'm the stable one. I have to remain strong. They might tell themselves, I can handle this, or I should be able to handle this.
I love this because you're right. Just because we appear competent, that doesn't mean that our attachment needs disappear. I love this part that we're talking about, Debbie, because again, research consistently shows that perceived emotional responsiveness from a partner is one of the strongest predictors of adult well being. So, feeling emotionally held, I love that. Am I feeling emotionally held, not just functionally partnered, is a great protector against anxiety and depression. When women in their 30s begin to experience attachment fatigue, what they often need is not better time management. They need to be asked, how are they really doing? We want to say to them, how are you doing? Please tell me really how you're doing. To be emotionally prioritized by their partners and loved ones, they need to have space to unravel without consequences. In their marriages, they need to feel chosen and supported and to experience comfort without earning it. These are some of the ways that we can really minister to this attachment fatigue that we're talking about.
I'm still hovering over what you said a minute ago about feeling emotionally held. When we are interacting with our dear friends whom we know are in this phase of life? Do we emotionally hold them or even send the message that we would like to? What a beautiful way to say that, Sherilyn. I love that. This attachment fatigue, which means we're not feeling emotionally held and we don't give ourselves permission to ask for that, resolves not through pushing harder. Now, this is important. It doesn't mean working harder, it means secure connection. That's hard too. We're not talking about easy fixes here, but it's so powerful when someone says, you don't have to hold everything alone. I've got you. I have friends that have done that for me. And there's nothing like hearing that. I got your back. I'm here for you. It's that team feeling. That's why, I think about that famous hockey team in 1980 that finally won over Russia. And they talked about feeling like they were a family. They had each other's backs. And that's so inspiring to me. We can generate and cultivate that now.
Yeah, Debbie, I want to add to that. I'm thinking about when I was in this stage too, and I've thought about this a lot because I hear one of the things that happens for women in this stage that are raising children and maybe not in a career, there's a lot of isolation, right? They're not around adults. I mean, look, there is a feeling of isolated so much of the day. And I didn't experience that because of one reason. When I was in that stage, we had 5 kids and we were in the military, and we had a group of women whose husbands were all in their medical training, gone a lot. But every day we would go to the playground and let our kids play together and talk. And I look back on that and see how that saved me through those years from this attachment fatigue that we're talking about, probably some depression, anxiety. So, just to your point about being able to hold each other and to support each other, I recognize now that that circumstance was life-changing for me through these years. And I would hope that we could look around and do that for those in this season and hold them, just like we've talked about.
I love that you shared that. So, the military family, all these women who get it, who are in the same boat, who do get themselves dressed, get out to the park, sit together, and share the burden. It makes me think also of the value of older women friends that have been there. And when we can either go to grandma or a chosen family friend who is beyond this stage that relates to it, that can say, I see you, I've been there, this too shall pass. That is so helpful. I love the idea of cultivating this, like I said earlier, circle of wagons. What does your circle contain? Who's in your circle? Or do you need to start thinking about that and reaching out slowly to identify those safe people? Women in their 20s, they worry about their potential. I remember that too. Women in their 30s are worrying about outcomes. In the 20s, I'm striving. In the 30s, I should have been there. I should be there by now. They may ask things like, shouldn't I be happier by now? Or shouldn't I be further along? Or maybe it's, why does everyone else seem so stable? Shame intensifies when expectations and reality diverge. So, Dr. Kristen Neff, I love her research. It's on self compassion. She spent her entire career studying self compassion, and she found that women high in self criticism experience greater anxiety and depression. Here it is again. Whereas self compassion does predict emotional resilience. Self compassion is rarely modeled for us, though. It's an internal, introspective experience. Many high functioning women are extraordinarily kind to others, but harsh toward themselves. That's sad.
That's such a key. That's compassion. So, if we could summarize maybe again what the research shows actually helps as far as protective factors for women in their 30s, we'll just summarize that again, it includes strong support networks, equitable partnership dynamics, realistic role expectations, reduce perfectionism, not more, secure attachment bonds, meaning making. I love that. We haven't talked about that. Yeah, what's the meaning I make of all this? It's important. How am I seeing this? What is my perspective about what's happening? And then this incredible sense of purpose in what we're doing. Those are the things that actually help. Mental health in this decade is less about doing more, it's more about carrying less alone. Our message to young women in their 30s is if you're feeling tired, if you're feeling behind, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling undersupported and quietly anxious, if you're feeling this way, you're not failing. Oh, could we just say that again? You're not failing. I love what you said a second ago, Debbie. It's a nervous system on overload, right? You're actually navigating one of the most heavy seasons of adulthood that we're in. You don't need to be stronger.
No, don't need to be stronger, even though we've told ourselves that for many years. And we've seen it in the media. It's been preached to us. It's just been cultivated by society. And we're wanting to counter that and give you permission to rise up and offer yourself compassion. And with some of these ideas that we've suggested, they're very simple, actually, practical things that you can do today. What women in this age group really need: clear and consistent support. And you mentioned just a minute ago, Sherilyn, the partner, equal partner, the role, sharing the roles. I'm hoping that husbands are listening to this, or those supportive male members of the circle of wagons. Please write down some ideas of things that you can do to support your dear friend or sweetheart. Space. We need space, an authentic, vulnerable, and honest conversation like you had in the park with those military wives, Sherilyn. Reduced comparison, which is another way of saying what you said, reduce perfectionism. It's step by step. We can let go of those standards that we used to hold to ourselves. Permission to be human. You are not behind. You're in what we would consider a process. If you're in your 30s and this season feels heavier than you ever expected, you're not doing it wrong. This decade holds enormous responsibility: building, nurturing, choosing, grieving, stretching. Makes me tired just to think about all those responsibilities. It can look successful on the outside while feeling stretched thin on the inside. Pressure doesn't mean failure. We've said that how many times now? 3? I think I've counted. It's because we need to emphasize that. Exhaustion doesn't mean weakness. It simply means you're carrying a lot. And if I know you feel this way, Sherilyn, if we could be in a circle of women speaking face to face instead of on a podcast, I would feel compelled to embrace you and to say, I see you. The invitation isn't to become stronger or more efficient, it's to become more supported, to soften this self-criticism. That is, we are in charge of what we tell ourselves, but first we have to be aware of what we tell ourselves. Reduce the comparison or the temptation to compare yourself to others. Let yourself be known. You're not behind. You are becoming, and you don't have to do this decade alone.
I'm thinking about what I want to take away from this, right? What's my there for what? And I guess it's the obvious that I want to look more closely to pay more attention to those women in my life who are in this season. I do try to say I see you. I understand a little bit of what this is like for you, but I want to do a better job of that. I want to emphasize that more. I want to look into their eyes and I want to say just what we said. You are not behind. You are enough. You are in such a hard season right now. You're doing magnificent work. And to just be more diligent about telling women in this stage that I feel tender, as you can tell, about those doing this. It is hard. And you're magnificent. I think that's my therefore what.
Oh, that's a beautiful word, magnificent. And the tenderness in your voice is a voice of knowing you've been there. And in your work, in my work, we see this so often where an incredible woman walks through the door of our office. They sit down on our couch or the chair and pour their heart out, finally talking about how hard their world is. Often I'm stunned because I don't see it on the outside. So I think what I'd like to do is similar to what you suggested. You're there for what? Is instead of just circling around women in my stage of life, reminiscing about how hard it used to be, I want to walk up to those younger women and say, how are you really? How are you really? I just want to know. I'm here for you. I get it. Thank you so much for listening to us today, and we hope you will continue to join us with these podcasts. Thank you.
So appreciate you being here with us. Take care, everyone.